what, if any, title sequence or opening credits of a streaming series or TV show do you never skip? I'm currently working my way through Pachinko, and the title for that show is unskippable in my opinion.
So good. Yeah.
Game of Thrones, BoJack Horseman, Severance, and many other shows have also had incredible title sequences, but even those I would often skip over to get to the episode. Any unskippable title sequences for you guys? End quote.
Yes.
That's a great list of
good list.
Great
very good list. I agree that the BoJack Horseman and the Game of Thrones are both excellent, but I skip them after watching them, half a dozen times. That's enough. I don't need to watch it every time.
Interesting. I will pretty much always watch the Game of Thrones title sequence.
Because it changes, right? That's the fun thing about
it.
It
changes, yeah. It's cool. It tells you a little bit more about what's going on in the world. And we should say for all of the title sequences named, the music for all of them is excellent. That's one of the driving factors.
Key element,
right?
yeah.
I would say these are all great. Peacemaker.
Have you seen Pachinko yet, Dave?
Haven't seen Pachinko yet.
You should. Yeah, I think you'd be into it.
The only other one I would add to this sometimes when I was still watching that show was House of Cards. Had an awesome title sequence.
Yeah.
Great music, kind of the super time-lapsed version of DC stuff going on. Just very visually interesting. I really like that.
I feel like Successions right now is always an interesting one.
I skip it
because there's a lot of good stuff in there. There's a lot of
that changes every season as well. So
and it's also like there's a good post comparing it to the opening of The Game, which it is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah,
and I like that inspiration, and it gets you into the world.
David Fincher film.
The David Fincher film. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Devendra.
The other one I want to mention is a show you guys will never watch, but I've talked about for over a decade now, probably, is Bosch. And the Amazon series Bosch had it's a very short but very stylish opening and has a great song. And any good opening that gets you amped up for the world that you're jumping into, I think is one that I tend not to skip. Yeah,
I agree with that. The amped up for the world. The one that comes to mind, and it's funny because I was watching it in an era before it was even possible to skip it. So it's kind of skewed because maybe I would have skipped it if I could have. But the one that I always just loved watching was The Sopranos.
I was going to mention it. I never skipped that.
The Sopranos intro. I mean, I watched that live on HBO back when there was no such thing as skipping the intro. And there was no such thing as streaming at that time.
We're we're trained. We're like Pavlov's dogs, basically. Just, you need that. You salivate for the show as you hear it all.
It's to the point where literally seeing the HBO makes me think it's gonna go right into boom, boom. I got myself a gun. It feels like it's supposed to go right into that. Got yourself a gun. Because that was the first time that I was hooked on an HBO show like that.
That's fun.
And The Shield was the same thing, where The Shield's intro was.
That intro sequence lasts 6 seconds.
It's just yeah, we're in it, buddy.
That's what it is.
The one that we're doing now that I never want to skip for some reason, but my family always was like, skip it, is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Long ago, the 4 nations lived together in harmony.
It tells you the Avatar mastered all 4 elements. That's Katara's voice. I always love. I don't know. I always love watching it.
It's a great. My daughter refuses to skip that, and if I try to hustle her into an episode, she's like, no, from the beginning, and she always demands from the beginning. So, it's a thing. There are TikToks accounts, guys, of people just being like, hey, nostalgia. Remember waking up on Saturday mornings in the 80s? Here's the DuckTales opening, or here's a commercial from the 80s. And it's it is weird how we're tapping back into this stuff and reusing it as content now. Those are cool things. Yeah.
The intros now are much more disposable than they used to be. An intro theme song used to have heavy lifting to do. It used to be we need to tell you the entire premise
Yeah.
So you can
Yep.
watch this show whenever it happens to be on because you're not
Yes.
seeking it out.
Yeah.
You just turn the television on and this is the show that that appeared. So we need to tell you what's
Yeah.
going on. Now it's, every show, the intros are made to be skipped. Oftentimes they're not anything, it's just like a sound and then the logo. It's, it's a different world.
I
now.
always like it when there's a statement, right? And I grew up on Knight Rider, and Knight Rider is basically like, you get the great theme, one man can make
Yeah.
a difference.
Knight Rider, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world.
And that's
yeah.
it. That's the
So
show.
good. Or
That's it.
A-Team where it's like, just a guy giving you a monologue,
In 1972, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit.
Yeah.
If you need them and there's no one else can help, maybe you can find the A-Team. It's like so
Exactly.
rad.
Yeah. But yeah, I got to reemphasize again, The Sopranos. That one is an amazing one.
Mhm.
Like, it's just.
There's no,
It
there's no
triggers
better
memories. Yeah.
there's no better funnel into that world. He
Yeah.
literally is driving into New Jersey and you're
driving
going
into
with
New
him,
Jersey. The only other thing I want to mention is HBO's True Detective. Now, not the greatest opening credits, but it became its own. It inspired many other opening credit sequences. I would argue that most Netflix true crime documentaries are inspired by the opening credits of True Detective.
Sure.
Just
Absolutely.
in terms of look and feel. A lot less asses in the Netflix, true crime documentary opening credits. But like, other than that, like just the look, the aesthetic, the feel. It's not my favorite, but it is something that I want to acknowledge as like as a kind of, I guess, very influential opening credit sequence.
Yep.
Yeah.
But in terms of going back to the question, right? Are there any others that we're watching today? Like, this answer changes as time goes on, but are there any others that we're watching today that it's like we don't really skip? For me, it really only is Succession and maybe Severance.
I gotta be
But
the voice of contrary on Succession. I do not like that intro. I think the song is very effective
Yeah.
and very.
Well, that's why
compelling.
people watch it. It's like because the song is so badass.
And you're
don't
getting
like-
glimpses of that world that we don't really see in the show. We don't really get flashbacks in the show.
Yeah,
so that
it's
is like
just
the closest you
strange.
get.
I don't. It
Mhm.
doesn't. We've been talking about how the best of these really get you in the mood for that world, and seeing like old family photos of little kids does not get me in the mood for that world.
I
for
mean,
some reason.
you see it all there, though. You see the separation of the family.
Yeah.
You see like the estrangement. Like it's all there, and then
and it transitions into the modern world.
Yeah,
There's
And
me,
really
Nicholas Patel's score during
Yeah.
the show, I think sometimes is maybe a little too much. Sometimes, right? They're getting on a helicopter, ominous,
Yeah.
he's like everything. Whereas the
Yeah.
opening is like really, I think, is encapsulates like what he's trying to get at, and is more fun than the rest of the score too. Usually, yeah.
One last thing I want to mention is for House of the Dragon, the HBO prequel series for Game of Thrones. They use the identical music from Game of Thrones.
I was so disappointed.
I just love. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would have loved to hear a new Ramin Djawadi
Yes,
score, but I love the
yes.
idea of, hey, Ramin, I think you made a mistake. You just sent over the original music, and it's like, I already wrote the perfect score. And he's like, yeah, but this is the same. I already wrote the perfect score.
You'll also notice the attachment is the invoice for this one.
Double
But
royalties.
you charge us another $300,000.
I think at least one or two Game of Thrones actors were like, they cannot watch House of the Dragon, or at least they find that opening very weird. That our show, our theme is being reused, and that's
It
like
is-
a simple thing.
it is
where they
weird.
could have just give us something new. Like there were really no new ideas for that opening, even though the show itself was better than
I think
thought
they
it would be.
really wanted people to feel like they're
Yeah.
watching Game of Thrones again.
Yeah.
yeah. Because there's no because there's no other connection. It's
Yeah.
in the title, in the market, right? It's not called House of the Dragon, a Game of Thrones story, right? It's not. So they really want
Yeah.
people to
Yeah.
know what it is.
But give us a remix, like
Yeah,
something.
add some percussion to it or something. Yeah. Anyway, add some modern synths to it.
Hot jazz.
Yeah.
Game of.
Add some lyrics to it. Game of
You saw
Thrones.
that,
Game
you
of
saw
Thrones.
that years ago when Game of Thrones was the biggest show in the world. That thing that was going around of the people that were like, Game of fucking Thrones.
That was a clip from the Filmcast After Dark. To get access to the whole episode, go to patreon.com/filmpodcast. You can sign up for ad-free episodes as well as exclusive After Darks. You can find the regular podcast at thefilmcast.com. And of course, like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.